George Santos, back in Washington voting on an unemployment fraud bill, which is wild considering that that is part of what he's been indicted for. Santos was arraigned on 13 separate federal charges: wire fraud, money laundering, abusing public funds. The DOJ also alleging Santos spent money that he claimed was for his campaign, but he basically grifted, pocketing it, according to the filing, for personal expenses, luxury designer clothing, credit card payments for his own personal use. Now, these charges come after months of reports about Santos's lies, about his career, his education, his own life. And the tapes that we have as part of this exclusive, the Santos tapes, were recorded by documentarian Blake Zeff. This occurred in January and February this year, so quite recent, quite newsworthy, but before this week's indictment of Santos. Zeff was at one point exploring a possible documentary. We should note, as we mentioned in our coverage last night, Zeff also did a completely separate student loan policy documentary that aired on MSNBC. Now, in the new tapes I have for you tonight, you can hear the focus on the money, the grifting. Mr. Santos wanted to find some way to get money for doing what most politicians, whether they're in office or candidates, constantly do without expectation of any money, which is he wanted to somehow find a payday for participating in a potential documentary that didn't ultimately occur. Journalistically, that would be not how it's done. There are ethics questions here and more. Santos, however, on this new tape you're going to hear for the first time now, was looking for a payday.
So what are they entertaining kind of like monetarily? Just look, I don't have a number in my head. Like, the fact that I'm having these are conversations I never in a million years thought I would be having. But when in Rome, let's have the conversations. A lot has changed over the last 3 cycles, so over the last 6 years. So from 18 to now, a lot has changed. The Ethics Committee has allowed so many things, and it's been bipartisan and across the aisle. So I think this is a different time in Congress where they're understanding that this is just going to be a new way of doing things.
Santos may have just been BSing, he may have been lying to himself, or he may have somehow got in his head that he really believed that there was a new way and this is what he would get away with. All of this quite interesting as we report on his indictment. As for the Rome reference, well, I don't know if grifting for interviews was a common practice in Rome. Jurisdictionally, though, it doesn't help you with American authorities. Santos also discussed whether the Ethics Committee would okay some of the line stretching that he wanted to do and get money.
So I was actually given encouraging feedback yesterday when I spoke to them that it's become a very common occurrence of members selling rights to their stories as politics comes more to the front and center of, the national stage and of, public interest. So it's become a very common thing, and this wouldn't be the first.
Now, these tapes are from the same source that we reported on with Blake Zeff last night, this exclusive set of tapes that have not gone public before. And we should note, although we, of course, are very interested in the news, and we broke it last night because we thought it was newsworthy, it is getting picked up in other print outlets, including the attention and scrutiny on Santos's attempt to crack, as the Daily Beast put it, a, quote, joke about a room full of Jews in newly released audio. You can see some of the other headlines. That's The Forward, which is one of the preeminent Jewish-related newspapers in the country. All of this interesting because one of the other charges against Santos goes well beyond offending people. It goes to him trying to justify a type of public theft. So some of this might just be offensive or scandalous. People can make up their minds. Other parts of it add to the evidence about the mindset of someone who, as of January and February, was talking this way, and as of now is trying to fight to stay out of prison for a whole host of charges that relate to lying and money. Now, here's a new clip where a clip tonight I want to play for you where he talks about these benefits that were for unemployed people in the pandemic.
So the way I look at it is they're not understanding. The question is simple. George, why was your income $55,000 in 2020 and why is your income drastically higher? Well, here's the answer to that. We struck a deal in the company so nobody went unemployed and got reduced to like a very basic salary, just so we, as we called it, livable wages in the company, so we can get by. So, long story short, I went from 2019 bringing in $400 and something thousand to, in 2020 my reported income was $55K. It was couldn't be more legitimate. I actually qualified for unemployment.
That's how he was discussing it on tape. The feds disagree. We are joined now by the documentarian behind these new Santos tapes, the man on the other end of those conversations for hours, actually, Blake Zeff. This was a big scoop when you brought it to us last night, and we wanted to have you back, as I mentioned, for some of those tapes that are new. So first of all, thanks and good to see you, Blake.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We've seen this story continue to really get traction. Santos writ large, the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, today was sort of talking about Trump and Santos as the face of the lying Republican Party. That's the politics of it, and then there's the law of it. In the new tapes that you've now released tonight, what do you think is important?
Well, you know, I would say that when it comes to what the congressman has been saying, it's in the conversation that we had, this is very much a confirmation of some of the stuff we talked yesterday, where he was clearly trying to get money to participate in this documentary. I want to be really careful and clear here, Ari. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not saying that this is unlawful. I'm saying as a journalist, it is not common that when you approach a politician to be in a documentary, just in my experience, I just did a documentary, as you mentioned, for MSNBC last year, and there were a lot of politicians in them. Not a single one of them asked me if I could pay them to be in it. And, you know, we had several conversations with the congressman where we were trying to avoid, you know, I really wanted to see if we could make this movie without that. And it kept just being thrown, you know, as a roadblock to get there.
Yeah. And Blake, let's bear down on that point. No one who was in government was paid, for example, by you in your documentary.
Correct. And that's
in MSNBC, that's a journalistic standard. I mean, MSNBC's run many other documentaries as well as many other reports. The entire News Standards and Practice Division does not allow payments to those people in government or most any kind of payment for a source that's participating in journalism. And so that's like a line. I wanted to then get your read as the person he was talking to when he says, I don't have a number in mind. And, you know, I don't even know. I never thought I'd be having this conversation. He almost sounds like someone who has some dim awareness that this could be bad and sound bad. Is that how you took it, or what was your take?
It is how I took it for two reasons. One, when I initially was in his congressional office meeting with him on Capitol Hill, when this topic started to come up, he stopped me and said, we cannot have this conversation while I'm in this congressional office. We've got to have a separate conversation about this. And so a phone conversation was orchestrated where I presumed he was not inside the Capitol at that point. I think he'd been given some guidance from the Ethics Committee. Where, you know, the potential disconnect occurred was my filmmaking team and I really did not think that the Ethics Committee was going to give him the go-ahead to take money to be in this. So we kind of assumed that, you know, we didn't want to give him money. We weren't going to. And we sort of assumed, well, the Ethics Committee is going to say you can't take money for this anyway. And then that part of the conversation will be over and we'll get back to making a documentary. So, I kind of kept saying to him, I don't think the Ethics Committee is going to sign off on this. And then as you heard in the tapes, he comes back and says, well, good news. I had some encouraging reports. The Ethics Committee says everything has changed. I can't tell you if that's true or not because I wasn't there when he spoke with the Ethics Committee, but it doesn't jive with kind of the experience that we've had in the past. And again, it's highly unusual. I've not had that situation where someone's asked for a lot of money. One other thing I'll mention, because you brought up the wording when he said, oh, I don't have an exact dollar amount. If you listen to some of the other conversations or witnesses who have been involved with previous situations with George Santos, even before he was in Congress, if you remember when he was doing, he was involved with a dog charity, for example. His language was very similar, where he kind of has this aw shucks mentality where it's like, I don't really know about the money. This isn't kind of my thing. I'm not interested. It's not about the money. Always kind of leads with that. And it was very similar in this case.
No, and that may be one of his mechanisms. He also talked to you about running for president. New tonight. Let's listen to that.
It's not a thought that I haven't had. Let me make that very clear. It's not a thought I have not had. In light of all the mishigas and all the freaking frenzy and fanfare over my FEC filings, until I can get all that squared away and put it to bed, the sheer thought of me opening an exploratory presidential committee would break all the rules.
I just have two thoughts, Blake, and we'll get your response. On a lighter note, between the Michigas today and his stab at discussing a room full of Jews yesterday, I'm reminded of the Seinfeld question of whether the dentist converted to Judaism for the jokes. And as we often say on the program, I'll leave it to others to assess that. Mishigas, to quote Santos, quoting a common term. On the more serious point, again, he balances between a completely absurd idea that George Santos and Nethman, his own party, kicked off committees, would be any kind of presidential candidate material, while also showing some awareness of, well, I can't do that. I do have some stuff I got to get through. So in that sense, again, you're giving us a window into the mindset. But I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I think you're exactly right. It was kind of wild. I want to be, clear. Sometimes when you talk to a subject as a journalist or a documentarian, you kind of want to bring things out of them. And so I want to be clear. He didn't bring up the idea of running for president. I was curious because when I spoke with him, he seemed to have such grand ambitions and such a high sense of himself that I brought it up. I said, have you thought about running for president? Is that something you would do? And he, has a very good sense of humor. And there was a lot of laughing when we were talking. And then in this case, he got quite serious and he said, it's not something I haven't thought about. I want to make that very clear. But then, as you say, he then quickly catches himself and says, but, I've got a lot of ethics stuff to get through first. And part of that, I think, Ari, is because it was clear that he had been meeting with the ethics committee a lot when I was meeting with him. And I think in some cases, just before the conversation, maybe the most previous conversation or meeting he had just had was with ethics. So some of these things were fresh in his mind at that point. But I think even that's interesting because it gives you a sense of just how much guidance and interaction he's having with the ethics committee. And as we see now, probably for good reason.